Welcome to episode 73 of the Hoopsfix podcast with me, your host, Sam Nita, full-time British basketball advocate. And on this week's show, we have a first. It's the first time we've had a player-coach combo, but not just that, we're going one step further. It's a father and son combo. We have Cameron Hildreth and his father, Danny Hildreth, who is obviously a former BBL pro himself. Meanwhile, Cameron is one of the top prospects of his generation, 2002 born, class of 2021, and he's long been touted over the last couple of years as one of the next great players to come out of the UK. Getting all sorts of attention from all over the place. And the reason we're doing this podcast now is because he has just announced his commitment to Wake Forest, a high major ACC school. And I believe it to be the first time we've had a player jump directly from the UK without doing a year in prep school or high school to a high major program. So it's big news, not only for Cameron, but also I hope for British basketball, in proof that we can develop players. They can stay here until they get to the age of 18, 19 and ready to go direct to college from the UK. But we didn't just discuss his decision, which obviously has been interesting because the recruiting process has been very different because of COVID. He's not been able to go on any visits. It's all been done virtually, so we heard a lot about that. But also the pathway, weighing up the options between going to Europe, going to the States, and not just that, but also the BBL. He revealed in this that he was actually offered a 6-year deal from the London Lions. So it was super interesting to get into all of that stuff. And having his dad there to give context and provide extra information, and also talk about his development and his coaching him over the years, proved to be a really nice dynamic that I really enjoyed, and I think proved to be a super interesting conversation. Now, before we do get into the show, there's two things I need to talk about. One, we have just relaunched our online store. You can see, if you're watching on YouTube, this hat, a new drop collaboration with New Era, super slick, super high quality, which is available to buy. And also, we've got sweatshirts that look a little bit like that, and t-shirts in a very similar design. If you want to support the work that we're doing, please go and check it out. Store.hoopsfix.com. That is store.hoopsfix.com. There you can buy gear. It's selling quick. I need to do a restock. There is some stuff that is out of stock, but please go and check it out. If you want something tangible and to support the work that we're doing at Hoopsfix, please go and consider buying some swag. Not only that, our Patreon account, as always, do need to mention it, patreon.com/hoopsfix, patreon.com/HOOPSFIX. There you can start to give us a monthly or annual contribution of as much or as little as you like to help us do the work that we're doing. It goes a long way in supporting us to become a fully independent and sustainable and grow this thing to as big as we possibly can. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, take 2 seconds to leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this episode below. If you want to reach out to me personally, drop me an email, sam@hoopsfix.com, or you can reach out to me on every single social media platform at Hoopsfix. Now, before we get into the show, there's one final thing I need to say. We had massive technical issues for the first 20-30 minutes before we could actually start the recording. And then when we did get the recording, even though the internet was okay, the visuals, the video does get bit pixelated at times. If you stick with it, it gets better. The video is a little bit dodgy. Audio, absolutely fine, but the video is a little bit dodgy. Anyway, that is enough from me. Here is this week's show with Cameron and Danny Hildreth. Danny, Cam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Obviously, we've had some endless tech issues. We're finally going. Big news to start with. Cam, obviously a commitment out of you. So can you tell us the news, what you've decided and where you're going?
So yeah, this process has been very difficult for me to, receiving multiple different offers and having, loads of information coming at me. I think, as a family and myself, after receiving all the information that, I'm happy to say that I'm committing to Wake Forest, which is in the ACC. So, I'm really excited for this. Yeah, kind of speechless. It's going to be an amazing opportunity for me, and I can't wait.
Can you talk about sort of how the recruitment process has been for you? Kind of who else has been talking to you, sort of who you've had offers from, and how you decided to make the commitment to Wake Forest?
So yeah, my recruitment process started at the beginning of this year, where I received my first offer, which was at one of the basketball training, was it National League session they came to, and then after that they offered me, which was Montana State. And when I first received that, I was blown away. Like, it was such an amazing feeling to receive an offer. Obviously, it's been my dream since I could be able to walk or even think about doing anything to, go to college in America. So, that was an amazing opportunity and, feeling. And then from there, I just kind of decided I got more offers just throughout, I guess, coaches speaking to each other. And then the ANGT tournament was, I think, the decider for me where, I received most of my offers and just kind of blew up from there. I had opportunities to go in Europe. Then these big schools came to me from America, and so the recruitment process has just been, crazy.
Yeah, I think when Chris came over from obviously from Montana, he was looking at a few guys in the UK, came to our practice, and then afterwards just sort of sat down and was like, so we're going to offer you, right? And like Cameron's face just like he welled up, and he was like, what? Like he couldn't believe, like, really? Like, what do you mean you're offering me, And that was great because it was the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's just been a roller coaster since, to be perfectly honest with you.
Chris Haslam, always got love for Chris. He's always on top of all the British kids coming through and making sure that Montana State is in there early. I guess when sort of weighing up options, you've got decisions to make whether you go to a smaller school where potentially you're going to be the man, you're going to have the ball in your hand all the time, and you're going to play a lot from early, or you've got an option to maybe go to a high major where you're going to spend a little bit less time on the court to begin with and sort of develop over the years. Like, kind of how do you weigh up that decision? Where do you see your role being, and what are they saying to you about kind of how they see you slotting in kind of in your freshman year?
Well, like you say, the playing for me is kind of important. I like to go somewhere, have a chip on my shoulder and prove that I'm good enough to be in situations. And, obviously at the beginning when I got this mid-major offer, it was something crazy. I'm like, I'm going to go here and work hard. And then these big, crazy Power 5 schools were coming. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I didn't even imagine to have anything like this. And, I think the role that we've been speaking to coach about at Wake Forest is that they want me to come in and be an impact straight away. And I feel like that's really big for me. Like, I've got to prove that I'm capable of doing that in the best league, one of the best leagues, playing against the best teams. The ACC is one of the most famous, leagues in the college basketball. So I think that's something that, it's a challenge, but I like taking challenges, and I'm willing to, do what it takes to make sure that I succeed in that type of league.
When this first started, Sam, Cameron was starting to drip feed offers coming through. He had 2 or 3 offers from sort of A10 schools, and we were like, okay, this is great. Like, this is where they pitched him at, right? We had 3 from the same conference, so you're starting to think, well, this is probably his level. We had 1 higher major, and we were like, okay, well, maybe they know something that we don't, or whatever. But we still sort of pitched at that level, so there was a lot of time invested. One of the schools was George Washington, where Pops went, obviously. And they were absolutely fantastic. They were great. And as I say, we were like, okay, this is where Cameron's at. The one that was higher, okay, that's great, but maybe that's pie in the sky. And as I say, as the process went on, suddenly you got another one, and then another one, and then another one. Then you're like, okay, now we've got 5 at that level. Maybe that's where he should be at. Maybe that's where he should be pitched at. But your point was right. It's always about, are you going to play, or are you going for the experience? And, Cameron can go on more about some of the opportunities that were presented to him. But, yeah, it's been crazy. It's been crazy.
Just quickly on that point, Danny, as a father, I get one of the sort of more frequent emails I'll receive is from parents of children. Normally, the parents don't have a basketball background, which is obviously unique in your guys' situation. But the parents don't have a basketball background. They've got a talented young player who, in most cases wants to go to the States and has got no idea in terms of advice, guidance they should be giving, where they should be going, and all that kind of stuff. Like, when you're approaching it and you're looking at it, when you're advising Cam, sort of what are you thinking about? And I guess, what could other parents that maybe don't have the basketball background that you have be able to take from this to be able to sort of help guide their own children?
Yeah, I think that's, we've talked about this throughout the whole process. I feel like we're in a very privileged position being in this situation. The fact that I do have a number of contacts within the game. I have got an experience of playing the game and stuff. But to be honest with you, we've always said from day one, my wife and I have always said that, it's got to be Cameron's decision at the end of the day. I can sit there and I can give him all the information in the world. The schools can give him all the information. We can look at it from an educational standpoint. We can look at it from a cultural standpoint. There's lots of different aspects we can look at, but ultimately, when push comes to shove, he's the one who's going to live with this decision. So he's the one that's got to make the final decision. So for me, I think probably it was more of a curse than an advantage, because the way I am. So we'd get a call, say, for example, I don't know, Xavier call. So what do I do for the next 3 days? I'm doing scouting reports almost on how they play. I'm watching game tapes till 3 a.m. in the morning, whatever. I'm searching up on how long the coach has been within his contract. What kids are there when Cameron would go there? What kids are coming in from the class before? What kids are, So for me, it became just an obsession to make sure I could provide Cameron with as much information as possible. So I don't even know how somebody who doesn't have a basketball background would even come to this decision, because it's been great, but it's been so stressful. It's been tough on the family. It's been incredibly tough on Cameron. The biggest thing I would say is that you have to get a feel for the staff. You have to form relationships with the staff, and that's going to be the most important thing along the way. Also understanding that this is a business, okay? So these are ultimately, this is a marketing tool for these guys. They're salesmen. They're trying to sell their product to get you to buy into it. So, you do have to sift through some of it, and with all due respect, the American way is very, glitz and glam, which is great, but you've got to figure out what actually is real. And how much you need to say, okay, well, everybody's told us that. So is it really still valid, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Cam, when you talk about the recruiting process, obviously COVID has impacted things somewhat, I would guess. Have you taken any visits? Have you actually been out there at all, or has it been all done remotely over calls like this?
COVID has been probably the toughest thing throughout this, recruitment process, because, normally a coach would come here, or, we'd be able to go out and visit, but we haven't been able to do any of that. And, it's so difficult to be able to just, after so many calls with different schools, just doing the same thing over and over again, over a Zoom call. It got kind of like, not tiring, but like, it wasn't the same effect as a person to person type of talk. But, I haven't unfortunately been able to go out and visit yet, but we've been able to do like virtual tours. We've been doing, they've called us and taken us around the school and spoken to all the academic teachers, the physios, the nutritionists, we've seen the dorms. They've shown us everything like we were there to visit. Like, they couldn't have done it any better. And I think the fact that we have this Zoom thing is unbelievable for us, because I don't think without it, we probably wouldn't have been able to make a decision, because we would have been blind going into it.
That's what we've been waiting on the whole time, Sam. Yeah. We've told them, we've been really upfront and honest to every school we've spoken to. We've said, you can give us all the information in the world. If you're serious about Cameron and you're willing to offer him an official visit, we will come, and then we can really gauge. We kept saying it's like buying a house. Unless you've got loads of money, you're not going to buy a house blind, right? You're going to go in and you're going to like, wow, this is the one. And that's what we wanted Cameron to have. That was the biggest thing for us as a family. Is like, we want Cameron to have that experience, and it was taken away from him. We waited as long as we could. There was a dead period until the 1st of September. Then they extended it to the end of September, and now they've just extended it to the 1st of January. So for us, for Cameron to have to go through this, continue to go through this, stressful time. Yeah, exactly. We just said, enough's enough. We have enough information about the schools. There's not going to be a wrong decision. We're comfortable with whatever final decision Cameron makes, but we need to commit now. And huge respect to Wake. They've said that they're not going to take him away his opportunity to visit, so they're going to fly us out there when it's available, when it's an opportunity, so that Cameron still gets that real feel of a visit, despite already committing.
I was going to ask, was there still it's a relatively early commitment, right? Because Cam's class of 2021. So was there any part of you that thought, well, I'll hold off until hopefully this COVID thing gets under control, and then you can do official visits and then make a decision after that? Or was it a case of it's just been so stressful, you just want to make it done and you know what you're doing, and then you can just kind of get on with your season, your life, or whatever?
I mean, you know, the whole process of receiving multiple different offers, and you know, it was such an amazing feeling at the beginning. But then it kind of got to the point, especially during lockdown, where we were, you know, sat at home. We didn't really have anything else to do or think about. All that was on my mind was the colleges. Oh, they do this. Hang on, these guys do this, but they're talking about this, and these guys talking about that. And it got to the point where it just started to, like, you know, get to me quite a lot. And, you know, I started stressing out. I started, you know, like, you know, how I wasn't dealing with it the best. And, you know, I could have kept waiting and, you know, going on throughout the whole season. But I felt like it, for myself, like selfishly for me, to be able to make the commitment like now, it allows me to, you know, kind of get that to a side and just focus on that one school, and then allow my season just to happen without things going on my mind. Because I feel like, you know, if I was to wait to make the decision during the season, I'd probably still be thinking about it. Then I might not be able to perform as well because I'm worried that I still need to play well or something like that. So I think the commitment now is going to help me massively mentally, for sure.
And the other thing as well is that it's not, Cameron being an international student it's not isolated to just him. You know, it's a dead period. So you might be in North Carolina, you can't visit Wake Forest to go on a visit. I'm sorry, go on a visit, but you know what I mean. Like it's a dead period. Nobody can go visit. So you're finding that a lot of this class are committing without even visiting. That even, you know, kids in the States are committing without going to see the school, without really meeting, and they're doing exactly the same process as what we've done. We've obviously just done it from across the pond.
When you're talking about what schools are putting together in terms of like a sort of virtual recruiting package, like what have they been doing? Are they sending you videos, tours of their facilities? Like, are you doing a live tour on Zoom? Like, kind of how has it actually played out?
There was one time that there was, like, it's like Google Maps. It was unbelievable. Like, it was on the phone. You could tap a place and it would just take you forward. And you'd tap into the door and it would take you into the door. And it was just showing you around the whole facility. And you look at it and it's like unbelievable. And then one time, obviously, you know, if I was to go visit, there could have been practices, and, you know, I'd hopefully like to join in the practice if I was going to visit or watch it at least. And we weren't able to do that. So Wake Forest set up this camera, like, what was it called?
It's just like a CCTV.
Oh, just like a CCTV. Anyway,
follows practice.
And it followed the ball and stuff, and it was crazy. It was like I was there, and we watched the whole practice, and, you know, were able to see it like I was actually there. And I thought that was, you know, amazing. Like what they were showing us, what they were sending us videos, they were, you know, FaceTiming, they were Zooming, you know, pretty much every day giving us new information. They were just giving us everything we needed to know, pretty much.
You got graphics daily, different graphics, different videos, like some funny, some serious, some great, you know, there's so many comparisons. I mean, we had schools talk, you know, literally showing us a video of I don't know, Manu Ginobili doing something, and then the next clip is Cameron doing exactly the same move at ANGT, and they're like, this is how we see you going in that direction. Then they, you know, another school would be like, right, this is how we run our offense, so this is where we see you fit, and they come off a flare screen and hit the three. Boom, the next clip is Cameron coming off a flare screen and hitting a three. So it just gave you a real sense that, you know, again, it's still a selling point, but it's like, look, you're going to come here and this is what you do now, so why would, you know, we don't need to change you. And that was the biggest thing for me as a parent coach. The biggest thing for me was, if you like Cameron for what he does, then you need to have Cameron do what he does, right? Don't like what he does now. The reason he's the player he is, and the reason you like him, is because of this. Don't then take him and then be like, right, we just need you to spot up in a corner and shoot threes, for example. But yeah, I mean, we got taken around in a golf cart. As a Zoom corner. They're literally in a golf buggy driving around campus. Yeah, around campus, not getting hit by cars. And I mean, we had some great times along the way. Really, really good. But they've done literally no stone unturned. Has been for a couple of the schools in particular. And you know, you can talk a little bit about the school that was the last one down, but they were just absolutely sensational, and it was sort of almost heartbreaking to it was like a breakup, because we were honest with everybody, weren't we? We like, it's down to you two, like, but yeah, it was like a breakup. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that other school and how close you were to making that.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate phone call to, you know, tell them that unfortunately I wasn't going to commit was quite emotional, because we would end up, there was a point where for like, I think probably a month and a half to 2 months, we were talking every single day, put like phone calls and a message, and, you know, we were talking about everything, just normal life as well. And, you know, the family as well, we had a great connection with them. And it was Arkansas, and, Coach Moser was one of the coaches, and I was speaking to him like, he was my friend type thing, and he was like, we were talking about all sorts, and kind of got that emotional connection. He was singing happy birthday to me, it was to my sister. When it was my sister's birthday, that him and his wife sung happy birthday. I mean, like, the connection and relationship we built, I think, was just very, strong. And then to say, unfortunately, no to them was so difficult. But, the connection relationship that we have with Wake Forest is equivalent, if not, better. Like, they're great people, and, they have respect for us, and we have major respect for them.
Is there any part of you that finds I find when I've spoken to players that have been recruited, especially being British, culturally, it's so different. Like, Americans are so full on in a way that British people very much aren't. Did you find it a little bit overwhelming at times in the way that they're just like, I mean, I hit, like, as great it is that a coach is, calling your sister for a happy birthday or whatever. Like, I'm just there, I'm like, that is intense. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, yeah. I mean, there's so much hype in American basketball, obviously, and they're probably used to all the fame and all the, crazy highlights, all that ball is life stuff. And, for me to receive something like that from someone across the world that was a stranger 3 months ago, to be singing, it's just something like, it's crazy, and like, yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty intense, but we constantly said to Cameron again, like, we've got to sift through what's genuine and not. And honestly, the guys at Arkansas were so genuine. I don't have a bad word to say about it, and about the staff. I mean, when you're talking about their staff, they have 52 years of NBA experience. To turn around to a staff and say, we're sorry, we're not coming, with that, like, something's got, like, that's big time. That's big time.
Yeah.
But yeah, you sift through some of that stuff, and it was pretty intense sometimes. But actually, you know what? It made it fun as well. Cameron's talked about how much it affected him, and it did. It really affected him mentally. And to have that side of things as well actually made it a little bit of fun.
There's been there is always a lot of talk about the pathway in the UK, and there's a few different offshoots of it that I'd like to go into, but just the first obvious one is Europe versus the USA. You've chosen to go to America. Kind of why America and not going the European route? And you mentioned briefly that you did have interest from European teams. Who were the clubs in Europe that were showing interest, and kind of what was your thought process around Europe versus America?
Well, do you want me to jump? If you don't mind, I'll jump in here. So the thing that I feel, and I've spoken a lot with people about this, if you're a Lithuanian and you grow up playing basketball in Lithuania, you want to play for the best Lithuanian team, because you can play as a pro, and that's your goal. And yes, you want to play national team, but that's your goal. In the UK, and I mean no disrespect to any BBL teams, but that's our top league. As a 12, 13, 14 plus year old, do you have those aspirations to say, wow, if I get to go and play for XYZ in the BBL, I've reached my goal. That's my dream. So I personally think that for kids in the UK, actually the dream is to go to America, because it is something different, because you believe that the next step is greater still, right? So, I mean, you had opportunities to go to a couple of teams in Spain. Manresa where Luke Nelson was for a while. Germany, there's a team in Germany, BBL team in Germany. But at the end of the day, it came down to Cameron wanting to have that experience that, well, you can say, but at the age of you wanted to always take that route, right?
Yeah, I think with the whole American route and stuff, like I say, from very young, I've always wanted to go to America. And I feel just like the whole environment about American basketball becoming that, like, if you to go to Europe, you're a professional basketball player, like, that's your job. You don't go to school, you go to training, then you go back home, then you go to a game or whatever it is. Whereas, at like college in America, you have school, and, you have the lifestyle of, being in America, and then you have, some of the facilities that you're going to play at is in America in college is going to be unbelievable. And of course, European basketball experience and atmosphere is incredible, but I don't feel like, compare it to college in America, the atmosphere is going to be crazy. I just like the whole fact of staying in education, making sure, because, I don't like to say it, but you say it a lot. One day the ball's going to stop bouncing. And I need to think about something after that. So the fact that I want to stay in education as well, and then play basketball at the highest level with the whole, college experience is something that I really want to do and have been wanting to do for ages. Don't get me wrong, European did come to my mind at some stage, but I think, going to college in America is a no-brainer for me.
The BBL, we did an owners roundtable a few months ago, which stirred a lot of debate about various different things. But the sentiment from a lot of the owners was very much that most kids that go to the States are wasting their time if they want to be a professional basketball player. And I think there's a lot of nuance to that conversation, and it very much depends on the player and the situation. I'd be interested to know whether any BBL clubs were actively recruiting you and trying to sign you, and sort of how those conversations potentially went. And, of course, like you're playing for Worthing Thunder in Division 1. You're on the South Coast. I would imagine that there is potentially no reason why, if there was a way of making it work, you could travel to London for your last season if it was the Lions or whatever. But yeah, can I talk about how the BBL fits into all of this?
Yeah. So BBL, we were thinking about, whether there was an opportunity for me to go to play in the BBL, obviously, because so last year when I went to go to play Division 1 men, I personally didn't think I was going to do anywhere near as well as I did. From being a 17-year-old going and playing against grown men that are playing in this, league that, some of them are 28 years old, played towards the end of their career. Then you've got some kids that are at their prime career and, at 24. And, I never expected to do as well as I did. And then after a few games, I kind of figured out that maybe I am capable of playing in this league. And then towards the end of the year, we started talking about whether there was an opportunity for me to go play BBL. I think there was one training session I went to, which was City Royals, just before they folded, with Lloyd. He asked me to go train with them, and I was like, let's just see what happens. And the level obviously is a big jump. But I personally didn't think I was out of place. But then again, obviously, it's a big jump from Division 1 to BBL. And then this year, trying to maybe think about going to the BBL. London Lions spoke to me about possibly going to play for them. They wanted me to go play with them and at the BBL, and then also go play with them in the EuroLeague tournament that they were doing. And that was something, pretty, humbling to be able to receive something like that at that high level. But the times that they were training would have affected when I was at school, and I'd having to miss lessons. Sometimes they would probably fly out, and then I'd have to miss school again. So I think, unfortunately, I had to kind of say no to them, just because I needed to stay in school. I needed to finish my education so that I can go to the States and get the high GPA or the GPA that I need to get. And I think the program at Thunder allows me to kind of just play my game. I don't think there's too much structure. Whereas, maybe if I was to go to a BBL or another Division 1 men's team, I feel like, I might have a bit more of a position, like you're here to do this and this. Whereas, it's going to be my last year playing in the UK, well, hopefully. Playing with Tom Ward and Jack Sunderland, who's just come back, I think it's going to be really, enjoyable as well, which I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, with the knowledge of Zaire as well, helping me throughout the way.
Whereas I was the other way. Okay, so for me, this year is about his development, preparing him for college, right? We always knew that. London Lions did come to Cameron. They came to Cameron with an offer, and obviously I'm not going to go into the details of that offer. But for me, if you want English talent to stay, if you want the best English talent to stay in the country, you need to make it really worth their while, and maybe over and above worth their while, so that you don't look at the bright lights of, so Arkansas's got 20,000 seat, above Wharton Arena, 20,000 seats. It's basically an NBA facility and everything you could possibly wish for. All right, and if Cam was to go there, he wouldn't pay a penny. Wake Forest is the same. Xavier's the same. Texas Tech. All these schools, you're talking about an NBA experience. So what are you comparing that to? You're comparing that with, and I mean this honestly with all due respect, you're comparing that to playing in the UEL and then playing at the Copper Box in front of a few thousand people, and financially, you're not talking about really any kind of money that's going to make you go, okay, no, I can do this for 4 or 5 years and then I'm set, or anything like that. And actually, I don't know if I'm saying this out of turn, but even so, he was offered a 6-year deal with London Lions, which sounds incredible, right? I mean, that's an investment, but that's also a very long period of time. Cam would have 1 year of this season, and then 4 years of college, and then coming out as his entry year. What level would he be coming out as an entry level financially? So, obviously Luke Nelson went to Irvine, comes out, he goes into, plays, where did he go? Gran Canaria. Okay, so his entry level amount, I would argue, was a hell of a lot more than the entry level amount that Cam would be 6 years down the line at London. So the argument then is what experience do you get in London? What experience do you then get in America in that? So yeah, it goes back to, it was really just a no-brainer. There wasn't enough there, and it's not just London Lions. I don't believe that the game over here could provide enough to keep a young English player. And the biggest thing as well was we weren't talking about Cameron going to a Division 2 school, no disrespect. We weren't talking about going mid-major, no disrespect. But we're talking about him going high major. I think that's a very big difference to saying I'm going to go to a low or mid-major Division 1 school and I'll see what happens.
Yeah. If just to go into that a little bit, you don't need to talk about the figures that were spoken about specifically for the Lions deal. But if we were talking, and we don't have to speak specifically about Cam, but if we were talking about keeping the top British players in the UK, going above and beyond in terms of an offer financially to keep them here, what sort of figures do you think we'd need to be talking about to be able to keep someone here? We're talking 50 to 100 grand. I would feel like it would be 50 to 100 grand a year as a starting point when they're looking at high major offers, right?
100%. I mean, when you look at a scholarship offer, George Washington's scholarship offers $92,000 a year.
Yeah.
So you've got that for 4 years. You come out with an education in the number one business school in America, right? And you have to pay for nothing along the way. On top of that, you get, independent living allowance and stuff like that as well. So as a comparison, you're talking, you're touching $500,000 over 4 years. And then you're talking what we'll give you, and this is hypothetical, this is not any way related, we'll give you, a grand a month, I know, £500 a month or £2 grand a month, to come and play in the UK. The problem is, as you say, I don't know how many players in the BBL are earning £50,000 to £100,000 a year.
Yeah.
So are you going to invest in a kid who's 17 years old or 18 years old if they 19 if they do 3 years in an academy league or whatever else? Are you going to invest £50,000 to £100,000 in the hope that in 4 years' time that kid's going to be your superstar and win you stuff and everything else? They need to win now, right? They need to win now. The coaches need to win now. They need to get their sponsorship. So, I don't think there's a competition, unfortunately.
Quickly on the ANGT point, I just want to, just for context for people, that was the EuroLeague Junior tournament that happened in February. That was pretty much, I think, some of the last basketball I attended before lockdown started. And that was Barking Abbey entered, and they were, because it's an under-18 tournament rather than an under-19, and they had a lot of final years, they were allowed to bring in a couple of guest players, which obviously included yourself. Can you said that it was after that really it blew up your recruiting. Can you just sort of recap that whole scenario, going back to it, your expectations going into that tournament, and then how you thought you were going to do compared to how you ended up actually doing?
Yeah, so obviously going into a whole new academy type thing. I've never played with that team before. I might have played with a couple of individual players, like a Southeast tournament a few years back, but not knowing any of their offenses, any of their defenses, how they work on the court. We had two training sessions. I was there for 2 days, and then we flew out, or 3 days, and then we flew out with 2 sessions. They were only like an hour and a half long. We did some individual sessions as well. But together as a team, so I had to learn all the offenses, the defenses, how they got into the screen and stuff. And when we got to the tournament, going into like this type of league where they're all European, some of them are professional players. Some of them have got contracts playing for their men's team. I'm like a bit nervous at first. I'm not really sure how to go into the game. Not really sure kind of what exactly my role was. But James Veer, kind of spoke to me, and he was just like, look, just take the opportunity. And thank you very much to James for allowing me to have this opportunity, because without it, I probably wouldn't be in this position I am right now, if I'm honest. So big thanks to James. But yeah, the tournament itself was an amazing experience, something that I probably won't really experience something like that again. With the European type of basketball, the arena was amazing, and the way I played, after the first game, I think it was kind of just a set for me that, okay, maybe I can do what I do in England, I can do that in Europe as well. Which was kind of, I took it on the chest and I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And then as the tournament went on, I kind of performed pretty well, and I think it was just unbelievable, and I'm very, appreciative of having that offer to go.
Do you think that, like, I feel like, I think I remember having this conversation with you, Danny, when we were there, that there's just a thing very much, especially with American coaches, but even maybe in Europe, where it's like anything that any player does against British competition just isn't counted. And it's not until, they do it again, even if you went to play against high schools that are trash in the States, and then you did it, then it's like that counts for something, regardless of what he's doing in Division 1 men, which is clearly a higher level than the vast majority of high schools in the States. And then the same, it's like, okay, he's already tearing up Division 1 men over here, but he's only got the offer from Montana State at that point, I assume, or the interest from Montana State, and it's like, okay, we're going to go to the EuroLeague Junior Tournament. He becomes All-Star 5, like absolutely, you upset, got the victory against Juventus. And then all of a sudden, like, the sort of floodgates open. Why do you think the perception of the competition against British talent, against Division 1 men, is seen so poorly in comparison to other levels anywhere else?
That's $1 million question. And I think that's something that we really struggle with. And, you hit the nail on the head. English guys against English competition just doesn't have the kudos that it deserves. We've had so much talent go to the States. We've had guys going into Europe, guys that have earned millions of pounds playing basketball from the UK, guys have had careers spanning however many years and stuff. So I don't really know what the stigma is to it until you go and play in the Euros. So the European, the FIBA competitions, and, in this instance for Cameron, the ANGT. But I really don't get it. But one of the things that I hope, I don't know that it will. I really hope that, maybe Cameron, having done what he did, in Lithuania, hopefully that opens a few more doors for some other players as well. Okay, this kid here is doing similar sort of stats to Cameron in his in his academy league. So actually, maybe there's comparative levels and stuff. And as I say, hopefully it opens some doors for some other guys, because it will open the eyes of some of these recruits, both in Europe and the States as well.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation we were having the other day, and I was going back and forth with Carl Youngman as well, also from Sussex Storm, about the fact that I'm pretty sure that Cam will become the first player to jump direct from the UK to a high major school without doing a year at prep school, or going to JUCO for a couple of years and then transferring. Which, again, I think is massive for the culture, like in terms of allowing other kids coming through to look at it and say, oh, well, actually, maybe I don't need to go to high school or whatever, and I can stay here, and which I think is, is beneficial for the game. Like, obviously, for the British game, having Cam here until he leaves is a good thing. We don't lose any time, and for other players to be able to see that is great. But one of the things that we hear, and I think one of the reasons that we see so many kids do a prep year, so to speak, is because the adjustment to American competition is massive because of the athleticism and the speed and the quickness, which I guess we're not really used to in the UK. When you look at that, is there anything that you can do specifically to prepare, that you can try and adapt so that the transition is a little bit easier than it might be otherwise, that you would, so you can make up for it without having to do that year in the States first?
I think the biggest thing is for Cameron is playing Division 1 men this year. And, again, any kids that, I believe he's probably capable of playing in the BBL this year. And if things had worked out differently logistically and stuff like that, then it would have been nice for him to have that opportunity. But, I just think that's what it is. Cameron's going to go up against, a 17-year-old. he's going up against grown men, as he's already said. Now, you look at all the highlight tapes of these top 100 recruits in America, and, again, in all due respect, they're going up against like 15, 16-year-olds. They're going up against overweight guys that are wearing tracksuits and playing. No, I mean, I'm taking the mickey, but that's what it's like. And, and unfortunately, it's just because, we made this point already. When you go over there and you compete against, their guys, they then respect you because you're going up against what they know and what they see. The first game you mentioned against Juventus, they had 3 guys that were NBA prospects. So when Cameron goes up against 3 NBA prospects and wins a game and game winner and everything, actually now we need to take note about that kid. But the last thing I'll say real quick is that with our conversations with Wake Forest, we're speaking with the nutritionist, we're speaking with the S&C guy and the physio. We're going to start his preparation now for when he gets there. So we're asking them what they need him to do and what they need him to eat, when they need him to eat and stuff like that. So actually his transition into, August, September, whenever he goes out there, it's not such a big jump for him.
Makes sense. The other thing that related to obviously this coming season and the impact of COVID is that, there has been concern about whether or not we're going to have a whole generation of players that almost lose an entire year of their development because potentially we're going to have no season. Obviously, we've had updated government guidelines yesterday. The BBL released a statement literally just before we started this call saying that they need urgent government help, and then because their season's meant to start in a little over a week. Basketball England are still waiting on advice to kind of determine what they're going to do, and the way things are going, I'm struggling to see how we're going to have a season. If that worst case scenario, the season is wiped out, is cancelled at all levels, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to, try and make up for losing a year of competitive basketball?
I mean, I've struggled already, to be honest. Like, throughout the whole lockdown, I think it's affected me. Like, it's because I was so addicted to basketball, I was so addicted to playing every day and competing every day. So then suddenly, like, it's just taken away from me. It's like what happened? Like, I was struggling. So, I was getting a hoop out in the garden, shooting. It's just not the same. Like, the individual workout is just the same. It doesn't hit the same as competing against people. And like the day we got back and were able to compete, it was like the best day. Like, it's such a good feeling. And the fear of doing that again, like losing that again, is kind of difficult to get around my head. So I'm not really trying to think about it too much, if I'm honest. But I think the worst case scenario is, just trying to stay in shape, going on runs. I mean, we've got a couple of weights at home. So if like the worst case scenario, doing things at home, shooting in the garden, like if that's what it's going to have to be, it's going to have to be like that. But, I pray and hope that it's not that way. But
well, you're in a very privileged situation that you are. Again, we talked about committing early. If there's no season, I'm more worried about all these kids that are using this season to potentially, get out there and expose what they can do and get these offers. There's kids that have missed out on European Championships in the summer, that have missed out on the Hoopsfix Challenge, which was awesome. There's kids that have missed out on Den Camp. Those 3 things, probably for an English kid, they're the 3 things that, okay, now you've got yourself on a platform that people are going to start listening about what you can and you do, right? So those kids, I'm most fear for those kids. Like, what opportunities are they going to have? You're going in, this 1 year where I'm ready. This is my year. I'm going to get what I need, and that's taken from them. So that's the hardest thing, I think, really, is the kids that we're relying on this year and don't have it. Cameron's fortunate enough, and you've said it already, that the next generation tournament and James inviting Cameron, it was just an absolute godsend, because didn't have that, we wouldn't be having this conversation about Wake Forest. We wouldn't have been having these conversations with all these colleges. So, as a family, we're eternally grateful for having that opportunity. Cameron had his Euros in February, and everybody else missed their Euros, right? I mean, that's what it is. That's what it is.
And that just shows the importance of having junior teams competing at the highest levels in Europe where possible, and I think obviously there was a whole furore about the fact that originally Barking Abbey were getting fined for missing Division 1 games that weekend and everything else, but it's something that definitely the federation should be facilitating and to help, ideally, whether it's Barking Abbey or another British academy, get out to play in these competitions, because it can make all the difference, as we've seen.
Well, the repercussions are you've got a kid going to an ACC school.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Take the fine. I'll pay Barking Abbey's fine.
I'm all out of time. I wanted to just go into some of the early years stuff really quickly, because one of the interesting conversations, I did a podcast with Dave Forrester last week, and we were talking about national team guards, and he was basically saying historically for the senior national team, we've struggled with having stronger guards. We've always been loaded in the front court. And then when you look at the guards that we have had, a lot of the guards that come through end up coming from a basketball family with normally a dad that's played professionally. You know, when you're sort of rewind back to when Cam was young and when he first started playing, what do you think it was? Did you do anything specifically to kind of help his development, to develop his basketball IQ, to develop his guard skills? Like, was there any direction from you, or do you think it's more self-learned, self-directed from him as he was coming up?
It was all me, Sam. It was all me. No, honestly. So obviously, being in the game, Cameron was always there. You know, the family always travelled to all the games. Cameron was always there. Ironically, we had this conversation with Cameron's godfather, James Brame, a couple of days ago. He was always and he brought up the fact how articulate Cameron was. So even at a really, really young age, you know, we'd be in the car driving, you know, wherever, and he'd be like, "Oh, that's Alfredo's number." You know, we're like, "What? What are you talking about?" One of the players on the yeah, and you'd see a door sign, and you know, whatever, and that was it. And we'll be watching a game on on NBA game or whatever. Be like, "Oh, he's got the same shoes as you know, Demetrius or whatever." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" Like, I'm there watching the highlights and the dunks and whatever, and he's picked up on this. It's the same shoes as one of the guys that's got, you know, so. I mean, they're two examples of just how articulate he was at such a very young age to watch the game and appreciate the game. And I think that's, you know, people like Jackson Gibbons, I've spoken to many times and stuff, has always talked about Cameron having such a high basketball IQ. In regards to coaching him, we at a young age, he played all sports. He played football. You played football at a pretty high level. You were at Portsmouth Academy. He played tennis. He was swimming. He did karate. You know, we didn't say I play basketball, so you're playing basketball. But just being around it naturally so much, it was your passion, your natural passion to do that, right? And
yeah. Well, I had to choose at 10 years old. You know, it got to a point where I was playing football and basketball were my two main sports. And I think I kind of remember the conversation in the car. I was about 10 or 11. I genuinely remember the conversation. We were coming home from Brighton, I think, or going to back on one of the games. And we were talking about, like, he was telling me, like, Cameron, at some stage soon, you've got to start making a decision whether you want to play football or basketball. Because, you know, obviously basketball had games on the weekends. I was training out the week. But then football, I also had training on weekdays and I had games on week. So there was so much going on. And, you know, football games are normally early in the morning. But if I had an away game on basketball, then which one do I play? And, you know, it kind of got to the point where I had to just choose whether I wanted to play football and basketball. And I think just the love I had for basketball just kind of overpowered football. And I think, you know, I kind of enjoyed it more, maybe because I was slightly better. But, you know, I think just being around a basketball family kind of swayed me slightly towards the playing basketball.
And then obviously it massively helped that I was working at a school, so we could be in the gym all the time. Yeah. You know, I hate the unseen hours and all that no days off and stuff. But you know, for Cameron, that he does epitomise those things. You know, the amount of hours. And don't get me wrong, it was not plain sailing. You know, every day coming back from practice, you know, one of us is blaming the other one for why practice was bad. Like, we've also
lived to Mum about this one.
Speak to Mum about this. Yeah, like we hated each other. We literally hated each other, but you know, obviously mutually respected each other at the same time. And just very quickly, I remember, obviously we're very close with Steve Nelson and the Nelson family, and Steve always said to me, you know, when him and Luke, when he was coaching Luke as a junior, they had a deal that when he was on the court, he was coach, and when he was at home, he was dad. When they got in the car, they had a few minutes to talk about it, and, you know, then it's changed. Now we're dads and do your homework, blah, blah, blah. We didn't really stick to that, unfortunately. We were walking through the door and shouting at each other and storming upstairs and everything else. But, yeah, I mean, I'm Cameron's biggest critic and his greatest fan, so... you know, it's been trying times along the way, but yeah, I feel at this point anyway, at least it's been worth it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh wow.
We can say something else.
Cam, do you think there's anything that you've done, like when you talk about developing your own basketball IQ, studying the game, is there anything that you do particularly, that you've done particularly a lot, that you think has sort of led to your development of your basketball IQ?
I think the main thing that I do is just, I love watching basketball, like whether it's highlights, whether it's an individual game, and I think I just, from like a young age, and I've always wanted to just be like someone else. And then it got to the point where I was like, instead of being like him, let me be better than him. So let me see what he does in a game, and then let me just do that, but try and do it better. Obviously, I'm like an 11-year-old kid looking at LeBron James, like, yeah, I'm better than LeBron James. Obviously, I'm not, but like the type of stuff he does, I'm like, right, I'm gonna try to do this in training, and then I do it in training. I'm like, okay,
Is LeBron James the best example?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I try and do some of the stuff he does in training, and then okay, maybe I messed up a couple of times, but then I get it, and then I start doing it, and I'm like, okay, let me think about something else I can do. I think just watching the game and being around the game for so long is just probably just the reason why I feel like my IQ is pretty high.
If you were to give an analysis sort of breakdown of your own game, how would you describe yourself on the court? Obviously, give us your strengths and then maybe areas of weakness that you want to improve upon and work on in the future.
Yeah, so recently I've been asked this question a couple of times, to be honest. And more so it's more like, who do I see myself as? And like, or if I can compare myself to someone. And I, when I think about it, I start to think about Kyrie and the way he plays, how his handles are pretty good. He can shoot the ball fairly well. He can finish around the basket, and he's an okay defender. And I think that was pretty similar to me. That I feel like I was a pretty good scorer and I was an okay defender. I feel like, I'm kind of a combo guard that, could bring the ball up and run offenses if I need to. But then again, if, you wanted me to be on the wing and become a scorer, I feel like I'd be able to do that. I think one of the main things for me personally this year that I'm going to try and focus on is maybe being more more of a facilitator, especially for the school team as well. Trying to get a few more assists, just trying to get and make a good shot for a great shot. So if I have a good shot, maybe it's a jump shot or something, and I see someone wide open under the basket, instead of me shooting that, I'm looking to pass it, and I think that's one of the main things that I'm going to look for as being more of a facilitator this year.
Makes sense. The other thing, when we're talking about sort of your journey and development, was when you finished your GCSEs. Pretty much the sort of the standard route in the UK is finish GCSEs, then go to one of the powerhouse academies, EABL schools up and down the country, and sort of play National League with a National League club, and then in the EABL as well. Obviously, you chose not to do that. You made the decision to stay at home and represent Holy Trinity in the ABL, which obviously is definitely, I would say, a step below your ability, which you've proven. Obviously MVP this season, and then obviously have been playing Woven Thunder in Division 1, which I guess makes up for it on some level. So I'll be interested to kind of just hear your thought process around making that decision, why you made that decision, and what the pros and cons were when you were considering it.
Yeah, so I think towards the beginning of the process about where I want to go and stuff, you especially were trying to think, ABL and Holy Trinity wasn't the best thing. Obviously, he was, saying, obviously, I want you to be home because, I don't want you to leave type thing. But then he was just trying to play that, he does it all the time, devil's advocate, trying to think what's best. And then it started to get to the point where we started to really think about it and think about every situation possible. Like there was Itching we went to look at, Barking was an opportunity. And those two schools were, obviously just because they were EABL, they were an academy. But, Holy Trinity is an academy. They are a basketball academy. And the thing that offered, when I went to Itchen, for example, they said, yeah, you're going to play on Division 1 men's team. Great. You're going to have individual sessions. Great. But you're not really going to play much EABL because your main priority is going to be, Division 1 men's. But yeah, you got National League, but again, you're trying to focus on men, so you're not really going to play much in National League. And I was like, okay, I kind of want to play as much as I can. I'm trying to get, the reps in, trying to get good game time, whatever. And I didn't really say it at the time. I was like, okay, cool, I understand. And then going to Barking, thinking about Barking. Obviously, they have an EABL team and a Division 1 men's team, no National League team. So that's already one game less that I'm going to be playing if I was anywhere else. But then I think the main thing about Barking was the fact that their EABL team was the same as the Division 1 men's team. So, I'm playing against the same players at EABL training as I am for Division 1 men's training. So then when I play Division 1 men's training against them, and then I play against an actual Division 1 men's team, I'm like, okay, like I'm playing still against, under 19 kids, and now I'm playing against 24-year-olds, if that makes sense. And obviously the individual sessions was great. But then the thing about Holy Trinity is the social media guy, Carl, he's, unbelievable. The things he produces for me in the club, I think is, crazy. I think he's the one, if not the best social media guy out there.
Apart from you, Sam. No.
Apart from you, Sam. for a club, for a club.
I didn't mean it, Carl.
For an individual club, for sure. For an individual club.
Yeah.
But no, I think, then they had the individual sessions, they're great. Being home, obviously, is a nice thing to do, especially as I'm going to at the time, hopefully go to the States, and now I can say I'm going to the States, especially for mum, wanting to see me and stuff. She had kind of, I want you to stay, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, he needs to go somewhere else. So that caused loads of arguments. School, yeah, it was ABL, but, they had National League team, so I'm already playing minutes there. Then they had Division 1 men's team, which is with Zaire and Alex at the time, who I knew I was going to learn loads from playing against men's. And then obviously Tom Ward as well, who was there as well. He's always been there looking out for me since I was 11 as well. And I think just the whole time of being at Holy Trinity, I don't regret coming here. I think I've had a very good year at Holy Trinity. I think I've improved lots of contact time, loads of, game time with the school. Yeah, it's not the best division, but, it's still somewhat competitive. Obviously, we lost to Haringey, for example. That's just, it is competitive.
Who were probably the third best team in the country, regardless of what league they were in.
Exactly.
For sure. That's the thing in it. I always say it's like, well, Haringey are the one team that definitely you stick in the ABO and they wouldn't be out of place, for sure. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, and then I was just saying, the National League team as well. Being able to play good minutes in there as well, just getting the, the reps in and stuff, and then obviously being with my friends as well that I've been around. I've known these guys from under 11 playing under 14s, been around these guys, and then throughout the whole year, throughout the whole National League team, just staying close to friends, I think is going to be important. Was important to me at the time. And then lastly was just the men's, the opportunity that they gave me with, like I said, Zaire, Tom, and Alex. And the way that they allowed me to play, I think was a good fit for me. And I think that I don't regret the decision staying. Yeah, the Holy Trinity isn't known as an amazing academy, but, I think for me, I think I've improved a lot this year. And I think it's been very beneficial for me to stay.
Did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't want to sit here and start and sit here and use this as a selling tool or anything like that. But the amount of contact time we give to our kids, the amount of individual or small group sessions we have with our kids on top of our training sessions, the amount of contact time we have is hugely beneficial. And we've been pushing to get into the EABL for a number of years. My argument would be, if you're Barking Abbey, you're Myers Co, you're Itchen, how many tough games do you play in the year? Right, because if I'm an English kid, I want to go to Barking Abbey, Myers Co, Charnwood, Itchen College. I want to go to one of those. But then if everybody goes there, where's your competition? Your competition is against each other. So maybe you play two really tough games, two mediocre games, and then the rest of them, you're going up against teams that shouldn't even be in that league. But they're not there by merit anyway. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So we knew that was never really. So if the priority then is not EABL, then what's the next priority? Playing Division 1 men. So as Cameron explained, having that connection with Worthing was great for you. I personally don't think. It's a bit like what he's doing now. I'm waffling about, but it's a bit like what he's doing now. We don't know if this is the right decision. We'll know his decision to go to Wake Forest in 5 years' time, whether it was the right decision. We didn't know a year from now whether him going to Holy Trinity was going to be the right decision or not, right? But we're here now, and we've got to look at it and go, you know what? It's worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
Massively helped by the introduction of the ANGT, but it's worked pretty well. So, yeah, definitely don't look back at it and think anything negative, that's for sure.
I'm super aware of time.
You're fine, Sam. No problem.
I was just going to kind of wrap up on the future aspirations that you have, Cam. Like, you know, we hear the 3-letter NBA word thrown around, and I'm sure you kind of have that in your mind somewhere. But I'd be interested just to kind of hear your take on like what your aspirations are in basketball, what your future goals are, you know, where you see yourself being after, you know, 4 years at Wake Forest. Like, kind of, yeah, what's your thought process around the whole thing?
Like I say, from young, I've always wanted to go to college in America. And if your dream as a basketball player isn't to go to the NBA, I think, you know, are you really that wanting to play basketball at a high level? Like, that's how I take it anyway. Like, if you're not a kid playing basketball, like, oh my God, my dream's to go to the NBA, so amazing. I'm like, then what do you want to do? Like, why are you playing basketball just for fun? And that's because I'm so competitive. That's always what I wanted to do. So that's the dream, that's the goal. And I don't think that's going to change until hopefully, you know, 4 years, maybe less, who knows, whatever happens. And I think that what I want out of basketball is it to be my job. You know, I want to come out with a degree, and I want to come out with I want to come out with basketball being my job, you know, that I'm able to go to play basketball, the thing I love doing day to day, and, you know, getting paid for it like it's my job. So I think that's where I want to see myself in however many years, basketball being my job. Obviously the dream, the goal is to the NBA, but who knows? We have to see what happens.
It's funny. I find there's so many players. It's like everyone aspires to the NBA, but it's almost like no one fully wants to own it. I guess for some reason, just because it's almost like there's a shyness around if it doesn't happen, or people thinking you're stupid, or whatever, you know. But it's like for anything to happen, you've got to want it to happen. You've got to believe that it's going to happen, you know. And I think you shouldn't be afraid of owning it and saying that's what your goal is, because that's the truth, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's the thing with Cameron. You touched on it earlier about when he went into men's basketball, he had no idea what he was going to do. He didn't know how well he was going to perform. You go to Lithuania, no idea how he's going to perform. You know, he's going to go to Wake Forest, no idea how he's going to perform. But if we base it on what he's done so far, you know, first game in Lithuania, you know, 35 points, game winner. You know, last game in men's Division 1, 45 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. What's going to happen in Wake Forest? I mean, I just, obviously, I said, biggest critic, greatest fan. You know, who knows? If it happens and he has a Lithuania-style tournament for his first year in the ACC against Duke, North Carolina, Syracuse, like, you know,
the team's
who
crazy.
Who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, the competitiveness of Cameron is why he's where he is today. Yeah. You know, we can talk about Dad being a coach and this and that and the other. The competitiveness of Cameron is why he's where he is today. And I don't doubt wherever he goes, he will be successful because he cares so much.
Perfect. That is an awesome place to leave it. Just coming up to the hour mark. I know you've got to run for practice. So, yeah, thank you so much. And congratulations on the decision. I wish you all the best for the coming season. Hopefully, COVID does not wipe it out and we have a season, because I will be very gutted if it doesn't happen. Definitely want to see, obviously, you take to the floor as well as everyone else. And, yeah, I'm sure we'll cross paths at some point soon.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam.